I understand. I understand. I promise you that I will take care of your kitchen. Okay? I won't do anything. I won't move anything at all. I promise. You believe me? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Oh, I gotta go. Miss Mary's here to video my video for Sunday school, and so let me go. All right. Bye. Well, hi y'all. We are so glad that you're here today. We're in a new place. When I was teaching, we've been in our classroom, we've been in our prayer room, and now we're here in the kitchen, and we were actually by the piano one week in the worship center. But today, I thought it'd be really appropriate to film from our kitchen. Now, if you can see all this equipment behind me, I'm not going to touch it, because I promised Mr. Clint and Mr. Mike, who is Miss Mary's daddy, that I would not move anything, I would not touch anything, I'm not even going to open it. But this is where they cook. They bake stuff in here. These are the big ovens. Over here on this side, this is where Mr. Clint makes these incredible fish fillets that we love to have. We're looking forward to getting that back. This machine right here mixes stuff like batter, like cake mix, whatever you need to get it all mixed up. And everything else is in its place in here, so we won't bother with that. So just as we get ready for the story, I want to show you probably things you've already seen, but we're in a new unit 24. We only have 2 weeks until we go to the next unit. But this is our scripture. Kind of long, but just stay with me. I'll read it, and you can read with me. You have multiplied, O Lord my God, your wondrous deeds and your thoughts toward us. None can compare with you. I will proclaim and tell of them, yet they are more than can be told. That comes out of Psalm chapter 40, verse 5. Now, we have a question, like we always do, and this is for the whole unit. You probably already know this answer. Why did Jesus perform miracles? Why did Jesus perform miracles? I'll read it in a second. Jesus performed miracles to glorify God, to show He is the Son of God, and to care for people. To care for people. But everything that He did was to glorify God, His Father. Now this is our story point for this, and I'm excited about today because this is one of my favorite stories in the Bible. Jesus miraculously fed a crowd with 5 loaves and 2 fish. 5 loaves, 2 fish. And I'm going to tell you how many people were there. Sort of. And then, here's our picture, Miss Mary. I don't know if you can get a good close-up of that, but this is Jesus on the side of a hillside right by the Sea of Galilee, where He met up with all these people. And the Bible tells us that it was over 5,000 plus the women and children. So we don't know how many women and how many children were there, but they were in addition to the 5,000 men. I don't know if you've ever seen 5,000 people, unless maybe you've been to a big football game, a graduation, high school graduation or college graduation. Those places usually have over 5,000 people, especially in the big schools. But that's what our story is today. And like I said, I'm really excited. Now, I am not going to be able to cook anything because I said I wouldn't do anything to Mr. Mike and Mr. Clint's kitchen. So, but you can look. Now, I've got, how many loaves? Can you count how many loaves? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, we don't know how big they were, but We know something special about it. Now, this is my terrible version of fish. Now, I drew them and I cut them out, and they look like fish, but they're not real fish. I guess you knew that already. But I did find at the store today goldfish, baked goldfish, cheesy. And I know that you probably have these, but I'll be talking about that in just a second. Now, what the Bible tells, oh wait a minute, I forgot, before I go to this, I gotta say goodbye to some wonderful, wonderful friends of ours who have started 3rd grade at their schools. So that means they're gonna be moving up from our Sunday school class. And Miss Prissy and Miss Lisa and Mr. Phil are kind of sad. We know you gotta grow up, but we have enjoyed being with you for the past 2 years. Those of you who were with us for 1st grade and 2nd grade. It has been wonderful. But these are the big kids that are moving on up to Mr. Bob's 3rd grade. I want to say bye to Brian Bridges, Sharice Dumont, Noah Witzlaben, Luke Ibarra, Bryden Alford, Avery Tullis, and Eli Martin. All you guys, when we get back to Sunday school, you will be going to Mr. Bob's class. And so I know he's going to look forward to you guys coming whenever we get back, hopefully really soon. Okay, and I'm going to talk about the story. But before we get into the story, you know, I've got 5 loaves and I've got 2 fish. Now you might say, why did you make 2 fish? Well, that's what the Bible said. The Bible said a little boy was there on the seaside, on the hill, when Jesus was there talking to all the people. And the little boy seemed to be the only one that had any lunch. His mama had made him a lunch. And the lunch was 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Okay. Now, the Bible also tells us that the disciples were there and they were nervous because everybody was hungry. And they were far away from the town. They couldn't really get anywhere fast enough. So they went to Jesus and they were upset. And said, what do we do? They're hungry. And Jesus says, take the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes and we will bless it and I'll take care of it. Okay, well that's a lot of people, remember? We're talking about more people than's at a big football game. So who knows? So I know that Jesus picked up one of the loaves, he blessed it, he asked God to bless it, and then he started tearing it. Now this is new bread, but it's kind of tough. So I wonder how far I can get with just one loaf of bread. Or I may just run out of time. But you know, if I had to pull this apart, and that's not a whole lot to eat, is it? I wouldn't have enough food for all those people. Good grief. And I wonder how long they had to wait. And then they say that all the disciples had a basket. And they took those baskets because Jesus had blessed that food. All the bread and the 2 fishes, and every basket became full. Now that's the miracle part that I said that was in part of our story for today. Now I'm going to move these goldfish because if I started cracking them, they'd be all over the place. But Jesus hit real fish, not play fish or paper fish. But if I start tearing up those fish, golly, how long is this going to take me? But you know, Jesus did a miracle. And Jesus, he could have just said, I blessed the food, or God said, I blessed the food, and it all was there. But it's going to take me way too long to tear up those fish. But I'll just put them right there, and you can look at the bread, and I'm going to read you the story. All right. We have a super wonderful, fun video to see today, right after I read the story. The title today is Jesus Fed a Crowd. This comes out of 4 different places, 4 different books of the Bible. And this is the only story that appears in all 4 of the Gospels. Matthew 14, Mark 6, Luke 9, and John 6. And they all are very similar. I read them all 4 to make sure there weren't any special things that showed up in any of them, but they were all just about the same. This is a very important thing that happened in the life of Jesus, and especially the lives of all 12 disciples. Jesus' disciples had been hard at work. They had been healing people and teaching them. So many people came and went that disciples did not even have time to eat. The disciples didn't have time to eat. So Jesus said to them, "Come with me. Let's go to a quiet place where we can be alone and we can get some rest." So Jesus and the disciples got into a boat to cross the Sea of Galilee. We've heard that before. But many people saw them leaving. The people traveled by foot and they ran ahead of Jesus. When Jesus and his disciples got to the shore, the people were already there waiting for them. They beat Jesus to the other side. Jesus saw the crowd and he cared about them because they were like sheep who needed a shepherd. And who's the shepherd? Jesus is. So Jesus taught the people many things about God's kingdom, and he healed people who were sick. So there was healing going on that day also. By this time, it was late in the day. Jesus' disciples came to him and said, "We are out in the middle of nowhere, and it's getting late. Tell the people to go away so that they can go to a farm or a village to buy themselves something to eat." But Jesus said, "They don't need to go away. You give them something to eat." Jesus' disciples were confused. They said, "We can't feed this many people. It would cost a whole year's salary to buy enough bread for them to eat," Philip said. Jesus asked them, "How many loaves of bread do you have? Go look." Well, that's when they spotted that little guy, the little boy, who came up and he had those 5 loaves, is what he had. Jesus told the disciples to instruct everyone to sit down. So all the people sat down in big groups on the grass. And Jesus took the 5 loaves of bread, and there were, like I said, 2 fish. He looked up to heaven and then he blessed the bread. He broke it into pieces and gave it to the disciples. He also divided up the fish. The disciples passed out the food to the people, and everyone ate until they were full. Now there's the miracle in all that. All those 5,000 people had plenty of food to eat. Oh, what did I say? 5,000 men plus all the women and plus all the children. We don't want to forget that part. The Bible just doesn't tell me how many women and children were there that day. But you can imagine, a lot of people, a lot of people. Then Jesus told the disciples to collect any leftover food. The disciples collected 12 basketfuls of pieces of bread and pieces of fish. Jesus fed, again, about 5,000 men that day, plus, what did I say? Women and children. Now here's our Christ connection. By feeding the 5,000, Jesus provided for the physical needs of the crowd. The next day, Jesus called himself the bread of life. That comes out of John chapter 6, verse 35. Only Jesus is able to satisfy our souls forever by providing forgiveness, peace with God, and eternal life. I guess you can see how that's one of my favorite stories in the Bible, because it's such an incredible, miraculous miracle. And I just love it. I hope it's one of your favorites too. Now I want you to watch the video that is next in line, and then followed by Pastor Brian. There's a question from a little girl. I want you to listen to it closely.
Jesus' disciples had been hard at work. They had been healing people and teaching them. So many people came and went that the disciples did not even have time to eat. So Jesus said to them, "Come with me. Let's go to a quiet place where we can be alone and get some rest." Jesus and his disciples got into a boat to cross the Sea of Galilee, but many people saw them leaving. The people traveled by foot and they ran ahead of Jesus. When Jesus and his disciples got to the shore, the people were already there waiting for them. Jesus saw the crowd, and he cared about them because they were like sheep who needed a shepherd. So Jesus taught the people many things about God's kingdom, and he healed people who were sick. By this time, it was late in the day. Jesus' disciples came to him and said, "We are out in the middle of nowhere, and it's getting late. Tell the people to go away so they can go to the farms and villages to buy themselves something to eat." But Jesus said, "They don't need to go away. You give them something to eat." Jesus' disciples were confused. "We can't feed this many people," they said. "It would cost a whole year's pay to buy enough bread for them to eat," Philip said. Jesus asked, "How many loaves of bread do you have? Go look." Jesus' disciple Andrew said, "A boy here has 5 loaves and 2 fish, but what good will that do for so many people?" Jesus told the disciples to instruct everyone to sit down. So all the people sat down in big groups on the grass. Jesus took the 5 loaves of bread and the 2 fish. He looked up to heaven, and then he blessed the bread. He broke it into pieces and gave it to the disciples. He also divided up the fish. The disciples passed out the food to the people, and everyone ate until they were full. Then Jesus told the disciples to collect any leftover food. The disciples collected 12 baskets full of pieces of bread and fish. Jesus fed about 5,000 men that day, plus women and children. By feeding the 5,000, Jesus provided for the physical needs of the crowd. The next day, Jesus called himself the bread of life. Only Jesus is able to satisfy our souls forever by providing forgiveness, peace with God, and eternal life.
Hi there, I'm Pastor Brian, and it's time for Questions from Kids. Autumn from Tulsa, Oklahoma asks,
if Jesus meets our needs, why do some people not have enough to eat?
Autumn, that's a fantastic question, a difficult one, because we know that God has promised to meet needs, but at times we see people who, maybe are homeless or who are hungry, and we have to ask, how do these kind of align? Well, let me kind of answer this a little bit because it's a really challenging one, but let me kind of speak to a couple ideas that are baked into this question. The first thing is this: we have to differentiate between what is a want and a need. I think sometimes that's kind of a problem, that we assume that wants are actually needs, and they're not. And God does not promise to give us our wants all the time, just our needs. So that's the first part. The second part is this, that we have to look at this over the long term. There may be somebody who goes without a meal and is hungry, and we can say, well, God's not meeting that person's needs, right? But then God provides for that need the next day and they have food to eat. So you have to look at the longer term as well. Another aspect is this, that God has promised to meet needs, and he chooses to use the church to meet a lot of those needs. So a lot of this should cause us to care deeply about stepping in to other people's lives and recognizing there are people who are hungry in our towns. And God has given us resources to help meet those needs. Are we being faithful? Are we giving generously? Are we serving? Are we spending time helping at a soup kitchen, for example, that is there to help meet the needs of people who don't have money right now? And so there are a lot of things going on here in terms of those practical needs. But the bigger idea here, the idea that we can be a little bit more clear on is this. The greatest need we have is not food or a place to live. The greatest need we have is Jesus. And God has completely met that need by giving us Jesus to provide salvation for us when we trust in him. That is our greatest need, and that need is available for anyone who calls on him. And so we have to remember that as well. As we seek to meet the physical needs of people, the greater thing we need to do is make sure we are stepping in to share Christ so their greater spiritual need can be met. So here's a question back for you to consider. What needs will you trust Jesus to meet?
Well, I hope you enjoyed the video today and Pastor Brian's question, and he gave you a very good answer to that little girl's question. Now, again, I want to say bye to all of our new third graders. We'll see you. We'll be right across the hall when we get back, and we'll be glad to see you and give you hugs when we can give you hugs. But we hope that you have the very best year, whether you're doing online school or you're doing in-person school. However it works for your family, that is perfect. Have a great week. I love you.